Hiya, I'm Aya, and I'm gonna tell you some Pokopia tips that I found useful or figured out when I was playing through the game. If you like Pokopia, or you're just starting out, these are some pretty good tips to get you through the early to mid-game. Today I'm gonna give you over 20 Pokopia tips. My first tip, make a home base. What is a home base? Well, you can take a small area, like a 4x4 little enclosure of walls, and put a door in it. That is a house, but it's not livable until you put 3 different furniture items. FYI, rugs are not furniture items, so they don't count. If you want to conserve space, use wall decorations and smaller items. Unlike beds and chairs, they can take up quite a bit of space. If you make a home base that's a little bit larger, you could fit not only yourself, your Pokemon, but you could also fit multiple habitats inside. I recommend taking some fencing and a door and making a little habitat home. What does that mean? If you make an enclosure and add 4x4 grass patches in your home, and you set up 3 different furniture items, you could fit 4 Pokemon into the home, the house itself, and then 1 Pokemon per habitat that's inside your house. So you could have maybe 8 Pokemon in your house. This conserves a lot of space, so I really recommend trying out. My second tip is to move new Pokemon out of their spawn habitats, so that you can reuse the habitats that they spawned in. Whenever a Pokemon spawns in Pokopia, say it's a grass patch, or a flower patch, or a hydrated grass patch, a lot of these habitats can be spawn points for multiple different Pokemon. So it's better to move the Pokemon that recently spawned there out of it, maybe into, I don't know, your home base that we just talked about. And then you can have another Pokemon spawn in that same location. That reduces the amount of habitats you have to create for Pokemon to spawn in. Tip number 3, remember, you can have up to 5 Pokemon following you. This is really helpful when you're trying to build things or moving Pokemon around. When you're relocating Pokemon, having multiple follow you and moving them into the different habitats or houses that you want them to be in can be a time saver. Tip number 4, make sure to pull up these leafy things. There's a chance it's a carrot, and carrots refill more PP than berries do. It also is one of the items you need for Gulpin, so once you get a Gulpin spawned and you give it a carrot, it can now be your personal storage that follows you around. Let's touch on this whole PP thing. A lot of YouTubers I've seen around have been saying stuff about like, PP, that's so dumb, why would they call it that? That's silly. Well, let's talk about it for a second. If you're rooted in the Pokemon community, you probably already know that PP stands for Power Points. But if you're not, well, PP stands for Power Points. Yes, it's just like stamina. In this game, it runs out. It's a little bar, and it depletes the more you use a move. However, in regular Pokemon games, PP is the number of times that you can use a move before needing to replenish it. Maybe healing in a Pokemon Center, or giving it an ether or an elixir, right? And since Ditto uses actual moves like Water Gun, Rollout, Rock Smash, Cut, these are all real moves, and they each have their own PP in their video games. So this is no different. Alright, that brings me to my next point. You don't need to water everything yourself. Only what is required for the Make It Rain questline. Eventually, it'll rain, and you don't have to do all the work yourself. If you want to, great, go for it. But if you want to conserve some time and move on to the story, only have to water what you need. Now, I do recommend early game to water the entire path from the Pokemon Center to the beach where Slowpoke will spawn. This will save you time later down the road, and Pokemon like watered paths. They don't like walking on dry, cracked soil, okay? So make sure to water at least the path that goes from the beach to the Pokemon Center. It'll help you a lot later down the road when you do get to the Slowpoke questline. Speaking of questlines, my next tip is to follow story progression to unlock moves and areas, but don't forget to talk to your Pokemon. So, throughout the story, you will unlock certain moves like Rollout and Strength, but you'll also learn cooking through the main storyline. There are things that you learn from Pokemon that are not solely specific to the story. For example, Piplup will get you on the surfing and the sucking up water quests. So make sure to talk to your Pokemon, especially if they have a bubble above their head. Sometimes they'll just give you a gift. Sometimes they are asking for a request to make their comfort level higher. Or sometimes it helps with learning new stuff. And some of these things that are needed to progress through the story later down the line. Next tip. Talk to Magikarp as soon as possible. Why? Well, because Magikarp teaches you jump. Jumping early game can be a lifesaver for getting around easily. Always talk to Magikarp. He's on the beach behind the professor's cave. My next tip. Make flower beds. Why? Well, if you make a 4x4 flower bed, you can spawn a combi. Combi litters. It has a litter ability, so it drops honey, and it also makes more honey appear, so when you see a sparkly little flower, make sure to click on it, inspect it, and you should get some honey. Now, I also recommending a 8-piece flower bed. So 8 flowers next to each other. And this is the habitat to spawn in Vespiquen. So if you have a combi dropping a bunch of honey, you can collect the honey, and then you can talk to Vespiquen and trade with her. So you can trade up to 4 times a day for 4 different items. She usually has some sort of furniture or rugs, and you can do this every day 4 times. You need 3 honey to do it, so you'll want to collect as much honey as you can. Speaking of honey, it's also super useful to respawn Pokemon. For example, the game kind of doesn't like it when you have more than 20 or so Pokemon out roaming the world. So let's talk about this for a second. The game pretty much just despawns random Pokemon based on how many are out. So if you have more than 20 in your area, there's a good chance that some of them get despawned. If that happens, you can go up to a Pokemon's home, use honey, and it'll reappear. So honey is always a useful item, so I recommend getting Combi and Vespiquen as soon as possible. 3 items, right? Okay, my next tip. Don't feel like you have to stick around the first area once you get access to new ones. Trust me, going to the new areas is going to help you get a lot more skills that can help you with building and decorating and pretty much just everything, right? So don't just stick around the wastelands, come back later. You don't have to make it super pretty, but you know, you can do what you want. It's pretty much one of those games where you can do whatever you want, but I recommend going to the next areas just to get some extra quality of life, you know? And on that note, I recommend going to the Rocky Ridges first, which is to the left of the Pokemon Center past the cave. This is the area where you will learn how to cook to power up your moves, as well as getting stuff like strength and rollout. Rollout is super helpful. So I highly recommend doing Rocky Ridges first. It'll help out with your early and mid game a tremendous amount. Next tip, make use of Dream Islands. Each plushie takes you to a different Dream Island. Each island has their own amount of resources, so if you have an Eevee doll or a Pikachu doll, don't be afraid to go over to a Dream Island. Just keep in mind that every day you can only go to one Dream Island. However, you can revisit that same Dream Island as many times as you want. So if your, bag gets full, go back home, dump it all in a chest, and fly back. No problem. Once you get into later areas, you'll get better resources. Also to know about Dream Islands is there is a chance that you could get a legendary encounter. So for example, the Pikachu doll island could lead you to a Raikou encounter. Funnily enough, when I was recording some footage to put with this video, I actually encountered Raikou on the Pikachu doll. So don't sleep on the Dream Islands, okay? They have a lot of resources that you can collect, mine for, but also stealing. My next point is stealing is a-okay. In fact, you should do it as much as you want. If you see an item that you really like, nab it, steal it, take it with you. Use it however you want to. None of these areas are meant to stay the same or anything like that. You can do whatever you want. So if you see something you like, take it. Especially on Dream Islands, they just despawn. So grab as much as you want. Next point, quick travel. If you don't like cutscenes and you want to do quick traveling between areas, don't use those prefab kits like the dens and the huts and the cottages. Each one of those will put you inside of it when you do fast travel, which means that you have to then also leave afterwards, which is a mini cutscene, so it can take some time. Additionally, don't use relaxation items if you want to do really quick stuff, because it will spawn you in bed or in a chair, so if you want quick stuff, I recommend not the relaxation items. Build a house, maybe even if it's a 4x4, just slap a door and a flag, Flags are what makes it your house, which means it's a quick travel point. So if you want really fast travel, that's all you need. Next, make use of Pokemon's abilities. Each Pokemon has its own unique ability. Some of them can chop wood, some of them can fly or search, some like to gather stuff, some litter important items like logs, vines, fluff, you know, all that kind of stuff. So if you have different Pokemon that have different abilities, put them to use. Make them work for you. If you hand over squishy clay to a burn Pokemon, it will turn it into bricks. You could also put any burn Pokemon towards a furnace and have them make ingots for you. Copper, iron, even Pokemetal. Alright, next tip is storage boxes. First of all, storage is a tough one to crack, okay? I am still in the middle of not having any storage system, as you've probably seen throughout this gameplay. It's a mess. But what's nice is that you could put frames on your storage boxes, the big ones, the yellow ones, and make sure they put your items everywhere. I recommend having at least one dump box where you can kind of just empty your bags into it and keep going through whatever you're doing, especially if you're going back and forth from a dream island. But this is something you can do as early on as the beginning of the game. Put 4 storage boxes around your workbench, 1 on each side and 2 behind it. Those 4 boxes are what the workbench is going to pull for. So when you're crafting items, you don't have to have them in your bag to craft stuff. You can just pull it from one of those 4 boxes. And since those 4 boxes surrounding the workshop all get pulled from, you can have a lot of stuff. And it even works with the big ones. Alright, next point is to prioritize bag upgrades and PP ups in the PC store. So if you get a certain environmental level unlocked, or a certain region unlocked, you sometimes will find bag upgrades, or PP up bottles. Buy those first. If you've bought them all and you want to know what my prioritization for PC stores is bag upgrades and PP ups, then I recommend buying recipes, because recipes can be crafted. And then items that you might need, like the prefab houses, if you want to build a city or something. And items might spawn in every now and then. I found Pokemetal and rare Pokemetal pop into the store, so nab those when you see them. When building, make sure to hold ZL or the left trigger to strafe. It makes things easier to move along an axis, so if you want to build a straight line, hold down ZL. It'll help so much. Alternatively, you can also use mouse mode. I've tried it out a few times and it's actually really great for building like bigger structures. The only thing is it sometimes lost tracking for me. Maybe it's because of the surface I was using it on. So try it out if you like it. Now there is going to be something later down the line where you can get the Magnemite unlocked, and that helps way more with building stuff. So if you are really wanting to wait to build and get the Magnemite, go for it. If you're impatient like I am, use ZL or the mouse mode. Alright, my next tip and trick is setting up farms. What is that? Well, there are certain resources that are kind of rare or hard to get, right? So when you set up farms, it can make your life so much easier when you need a lot of certain items at a time, especially when you're building big structures. So for example, you can have a lumber yard. You kind of need this one Pokemon, Haxorus, which is the only Pokemon at this time that litters logs. Get yourself a gathering Pokemon and a community box, and you can basically have yourself a lumber farm. Same thing with the veggies. Make sure you grab yourself a sprinkler once you get the Rocky Ridge area unlocked, but you can also just make sure you're putting your farm surrounded by water to keep it irrigated. But if you get a sprinkler, you can do a 5x5 diamond shape veggie farm. So you can grow all of your tomatoes, beans, wheat, and potatoes. Super easy. If you keep Pokemon like Bulbasaur or Bellsprout nearby, they can also use their growth ability to help your crops grow faster. Think smarter, not harder. There's so many videos out there talking about building a farm, how to optimize that kind of stuff, so make sure to check that out, and I might put one out later once I get my farms up and running. Alright, next point, make use of security cameras. When I was playing through the game, I didn't do it at first. Wow, that was so silly of me. If you use security cameras and you put them up on a habitat that you're not like right next to all the time, the security camera, when a Pokemon appears, will alert you and you can go back to that area and you know when to get that Pokemon to actually fully spawn. Another thing you can do is if you have a shop set up, aka you have some counters and a cash register set up, any Pokemon with the trade ability can set up shop every day. And if you put cameras nearby those shops, you can check them to see what items they have in store. It's a quick way to just bounce around all of your shops if you really care about that. Here is my final and biggest tip of the whole video. 3D printing. Yep, that's right. 3D printing is in this game. Once you have a Pokemon Center completely built, you also unlock what we call 3D printing. There's a little machine inside that can 3D print things that you take photos of. Now you can't just take any photograph, you have to take an object photo. You get up to 20 reference photos at a time. So, remember Rocky Ridges when I said something about the farming? Yeah, you can go and take a picture in object mode. You do this by pushing Y when you put your camera up, and take a picture of the sprinkler. Then you can take it to the Pokemon Center. Make sure you have Pokemetal because all of these 3D prints will require some sort of Pokemetal, whether it's regular Pokemetal ingots or rare Pokemetal. And then you can 3D print any number of these sprinklers that you want. But you can do the same thing elsewhere. So for example, you can go to the Developers Island or the Ico Island, and you can take pictures of things that you might not have. For example, if you want a Charizard really early on, you could go to their island, take a picture of the berry box because you're not going to get all the berries until later on in the game anyway. You might have the recipe for it, but you don't have all the berries. You can take a picture of the berry box and then 3D print it back home. Or you can just take pictures of all of the different trees and then also 3D print a whole tree. 3D printing is a really, really great tool to have, especially when there's certain items that you just really need or want. If you made it this far, please drop a like or just a comment. And if you want more content about Pokopia or Pokemon Nuzlocke, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We have many videos coming out very soon with lots of fun Pokopia stuff, builds, playthroughs, live streams, and of course Nuzlocke run-throughs. They're gonna be out very soon. Thank you so much for being here, and have a fantastic day.